All right.
Alrighty. I can hear you loud and clear. The picture looks good. And that gave me time to throw the phone on the gimbal, so it's going to be a little bit better
Well, yeah.
stability.
Well, yeah. Let's see.
My giant mess of
Well,
junk up
apparently
there.
back at the gut, a few people have found us.
Let me, on my other phone, because I'm not doing anything on this one but streaming, I'll share it out on my channel.
All right. Brett is back. Well, Father Fish is back. We just had to go through. I did so many things in such a short period of time without understanding any of it that the only option I had was to scrap it all and start over. So that's
Well, it
what I've
seemed to have
done.
turned out.
We're a little better. Ah, glory. Okay, in the meantime, I got a couple of questions answered. So that was good. Hey, what's going on? Is there any additional scuttlebutt about this purging, about the great purge that's going on? I've lost about 50 accounts so far.
From what I'm seeing, it looks to have stopped for the most part. I finally quit going down in subscriber count and started going back up again. So I think that this round is over for the majority of it. Bear in mind, I also have a smaller channel, so percentage wise, they still may be going through. With yours is between double and 2/3 larger than mine. You may still have a little bit going on yours, but I think it's about done with for now. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I lost a couple today, this morning. I guess overnight. I don't know. I don't know when they do it. But I've lost more than I've gained. I've
Yeah,
gone back to
I had about a week of that, and then finally it started going the other direction. Of course, I put out a decent video, which helps, as you mentioned. So
yeah, it sure does, doesn't it?
trying to
Let's
get
see.
more, like you said, into some basic care things and more informative stuff. The other stuff's fun, but I want to get back into do-it-yourself projects and how-tos and top 5 plecos, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've got followers who are kicking me in the shins to do content, and I can't much blame them. I haven't done a good content in weeks. In fact, I really have not done content as a discipline since I hit 1,000 in February. So it's been like 4 months. There have been a few here and there along the way, but nothing like what I was doing before that. And part of it for me is that I kind of did everything that I was of a mind to do, which mainly had to do with the dirted tank and really teaching that and talking about that and focusing on it, looking at the options and so forth. So that by
Absolutely.
the time I hit 1,000, I didn't know what else to do.
Well,
And I'm
and
kind of still in that place.
you've got an option that's open to you that's not open to a whole lot of people, and that's you could do things from a fish store owner's perspective. You know,
True. Yeah.
you could do common issues that you have as an owner, things that people new to the hobby could be helpful to them coming into a pet store for maybe the first time or maybe the first time in a long time.
Oh,
Um,
that's a thought.
you could definitely do like top 5 questions to ask your LFS owner, or something like that.
Huh,
Do a little
that's
series
cool.
like that.
I need a programmer.
Right. Yeah, it can definitely be tricky, especially when like you've got everything going on, running the shop and life and all of that. It can be interesting trying to get out good content. I could film a tank every day for 20 minutes or 5 minutes and throw up a clip, but I don't. That's nothing against it, but that's not necessarily the direction I want to go. I'd rather
Yeah,
put out
exactly.
one quality video a week that can help. Um,
Yeah, right. I've really gotten into the streams, and of course now I'm doing a stream every morning.
well,
And I'm really enjoying it. And I'm finding there's an amazing amount of content that comes in because people are bringing issues. They're bringing questions.
and that's exactly it. And that's one of the places that I've started drawing content ideas from. 'Cause I get a lot of questions because people know I love plecos. So I get a lot of pleco questions. So one of the videos I'm working on is, your top 5 plecos for small tanks. Plecos that
Right.
stay 4 inches and under, things like that. Because I get that question all the time. Hey, I've got a 20 gallon or a 30 gallon. What can I put in there for a pleco?
Right. Let's see. Leslie has got a killer here. Gonna try your dirted tank method. The plants in my Wallstead dirted tank always die.
Huh.
I think it's due to the whole house water filters we use on our well water. No minerals or nutrients. Worse than that, the whole house filter, particularly if it's an RO system or a water softener, is not just pulling minerals out, it's changing the pH. It's pulling out the carbonates that you need to stabilize your pH. Um, Use water pre-filtered. Use the water before it goes through any of your systems. Are you doing that because you have whole house water filters because you're on a well? We use on our well water, yeah. Um, Well water is absolutely perfect water. There is no better water than well water, straight out of the ground. The only single caveat is that it does not have dissolved oxygen in it. So it takes about 5 minutes with an air stone or 10 minutes without it for the water to have adequate oxygen to support life. Use the well water, use it straight. It will completely reverse the problems you're having. Also, be sure with the Wallstead method to cap your soil adequately. If you don't, then nutrients get into the water column, and that can create a variety of problems. So, you want a minimum of 2 inches of sand on top of your soil in order to be able to hold it down. That is a beautiful piece of wood. Show that again. What's that big trunk you've got in there?
And that is a 125-gallon tank. See if I can get you the full shot. So it's about 3 foot.
Oh, wow.
Now it's still not fully sunken yet, so I've actually got it zip tied through rocks, and I've got that suction cup plant holder flipped upside down to hold it down. But it's
Oh,
getting
yeah.
there.
That's really nice.
This,
Beautiful piece.
thank you. This is all going over into the 220-gallon once I can get it moved into the house. So it's gonna really do well for them. I get another wide shot. I've got one piranha from the very beginning. Let's see if it's in it. Yep. Let's see if I can tilt this down. That has been its home inside that wood ever since I put that wood in there. It claimed that little territory. Oh, there it goes out. Okay, these guys are going to go into a 220 with that piece of wood, and I'm probably going to half plant it and leave the other half open, similar to this, because I found that that's what, there's my junk down there. That's what really helps with the piranha. I know a lot of people can't have them, or there are a lot of misconceptions with keeping piranha. But if you give them adequate hiding spaces, and that's where my canister filter seal broke, so I put all of my media in there to keep it cycle. But normally that space is all clear on the left, and then they can hang out wherever they want to, and they choose to hang out in the open areas, knowing that they have some place to retreat to if they feel threatened. See if I can set this up, and I can feed them for you. I know it's crazy. That's actually my most popular video, is a cheesy little unedited, no talking piranha video that I did back when I first started my channel, and that's been the most popular thing against all my edited stuff. It may not with me sitting here, but yeah, I don't feed them live feeder fish. I know that's a common misconception. I have tossed the occasional convict cichlid in there for educational purposes, but generally it's pellets and flakes and frozen food for them. And they were wild caught. They're a Caribe, still of the Pygocentris family, like your red bellies. I think we lost father fish. All right, let me see. Yeah, Scott, that's some big wood right there. And Leslie, not that my opinion. Oh, there's father fish, but I was say I wholeheartedly agree with what he was saying about the well water. 100% accurate on that, of course.
It's fish. I love them. We cannot do piranha is about the only fish in Florida that they have capital punishment laws against.
Yeah,
There's
that's one of the biggest things that prevents me from ever moving back.
yeah, yeah, they're so panicked by piranha. And there are a lot of really cool fish we can't have, like arowana. We can do silver, but that's it. We
Right.
cannot do arapima. No arapima. Fish that I would have otherwise in my shop, because I've always had them, are not allowed in Florida. Now I could get them. I could get permits. I can't get permits for piranha, but I could get permits for stingrays, arapima, some of the other stuff. that's illegal if I were shipping them out of state, or if the particular locale I'm in Florida permits it.
Right.
I can have some things here that people in other parts of the state cannot have. But I think it's mostly northern counties that can have this stuff.
Well, and from my understanding in Tennessee, because piranha kind of dried up, if you will, at the local pet stores, they changed the laws to where you can't bring them across state lines in anymore. You
Right,
can still
right,
have
right.
them, but unless they're already here, you can't get them in now. So that just puts even more pressure on trying to breed these. They're not really bred often, if at all. There are only 1 or 2 cases of breeding them in captivity, but I have high hopes. I've bred some other piranha. I've bred red bellies and some maculatus.
Uh,
So
Leslie, that's Scott. We just use a simple, cheap Home Depot filter to filter out all the red iron. I really think it affects my plants. Well, the red iron is precisely what the plants are looking for. That's a critical element in plant growth. So you really don't want to pull the iron out of the water. The TDS is only 50 coming out of her tap. Well water is typically over 200 ppm or TDS. So it's probably you're probably sucking a lot more out than you think you are. Anyway, try the well water straight from the ground. I think you'll find it'll have a salutary effect. Love to
absolutely.
keep more of the smaller species of snakeheads. Ian's talking about snakeheads. Yeah, they're across the board. Snakeheads are banned. We can't do any snakeheads, even the ones that only get 6 inches long. Everybody has had a heart attack over snakeheads, the monster
Unfortunately,
fish. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just nuts.
they're gonna climb up in your bed and attack you in your sleep. You know.
Yeah, God knows. And it ain't like you can get rid of them. You know, if they're established, they're established.
That's exactly it.
Making them against the law simply precludes the possibility of people pulling them out of the environment. So let me tell you a little story about that. This is kind of interesting. Back in the 50s, one of the most popular fish here in Florida for the farmers was the plecostomus.
Oh yes.
Everybody wanted plecostomus. And so they would ship them in, bring them in by the hundreds of thousands, probably by the millions, out of South America every month. Hundreds of thousands of plecostomus. Finally, a couple of farmers got a smart idea. They got a shipment of plecostomus in, and they traveled all over the state, releasing them into the wild. Tens of thousands of them, all different species. Now, this is all the big ones, the common ones. Release them into the wild. Within 2 years, they were harvesting plecostomus here in Florida. And it's been a major economic market ever since. None of these big common plecostomus are brought in for the wild anymore. They're all caught locally. And what they provide is that the way they spawn is they dig out a cave in the side of a bank, and they go in and lay their eggs. And the eggs are the shape and consistency of a grapefruit, an ugly grapefruit if you've seen one of them. It's like a big ball. a hard ball of eggs. The collectors will go into those creeks and canals, reach their hands up into those uh, holes in the canal, all the way up to their armpit until they feel the fish, reach around in back of it, feel the egg mass and pull it out. They sell that egg mass to the farmer. What used to be $5, it's now $10. The farmer puts them in a vat, hatches them out. It takes a few days for them to hatch out, and then he dumps them into a well-prepared pond, and within a month starts harvesting them. And that's the story of the Placostomus in Florida.
Yeah, and they are all over the place.
Oh, they are.
I've got a couple, but those are mostly things that people brought them into the fish store and was like, "Well, I got this and it's way too big."
Right.
But generally, I stick
Yeah,
with
I
fancy
get them all
plecos.
the time. I sell them to people with ponds. Let's see. Eon is saying, I think it's crazy. We can't have Asian arowana, even though they're line bred to have lots of color and different scale types and still considered endangered. They're not only endangered, they're extinct, effectively extinct in the wild, and they are microchipped.
Yep.
A number of people in the industry are pushing um, Fish and Wildlife Federal to approve import of Asian arowanas. There's no reason at all to preclude the importation of a fish that's going to cost three, four, $5,000. That is not wild caught. That is microchipped. That is controlled in every stage of its development. We should be able to get that one through. We'll see.
Absolutely. And I've got a fish in here that's on the CITES list or the CITES or cities, however you want to say it. But it's the L46 zebra pleco. Can't hardly see that one back there in the little piece of wood. I've got three in there, but I'm currently drip acclimating 10 of these little guys in here.
Oh, nice.
So my hope is, wish I had a flashlight. The one time I don't have a flashlight. My hope is to
Yeah, we
get a
can see
nice
it.
breeding colony.
Oh, that's great. We have a good pleco guy down here, Chris, uh, the president of our club, who's a biologist with the Park Service in Florida, who does about 10 different kinds of plecos.
I love them. That's my thing. And you were talking about oxygenating water. That's actually what I was just doing here. I had that air stone in here because I've got some RO water that I picked up to go into that tank for them. So I was just running an air stone for about 5 minutes. Not necessarily required, but something I'd rather do and not have to worry about it, especially because I like high oxygen environments. I'm gonna grab my phone so I
Chewy,
can see the chat.
yeah, Chewy's making a comment about a fish living, plecos living in Florida water. Uh, the biologists who have researched the plecos have found that they have crossbred at least five different species have crossbred in Florida. So we've got a real mutt population. And of course, these are the guys that get 2 to 3 foot long. They've become massive.
I've got two smaller ones, and when I say smaller, they're about 9 or 10 inches in that piranha tank. Just
Right.
Hypostomus, Plecostomus.
Yeah, and say you didn't know that the arowana was fully extinct. They've not found them. They think there's a population in Myanmar, but they're gone from Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, all of the areas where they were initially found. They've just been fished out. But there are very large farms that are farming these fish in quite substantial numbers. So it's a fish that, while it's extinct in the wild, is thriving in captivity. Ricker Belmont, Rhett is can do that. Do you live near Father Fish? Who's Ricker? What is Ricker?
Oh, I think he was asking about dropping off some driftwood there when he brought the driftwood down to you.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. Right. Yes, I see it.
Ed and
I
I
had
are. Go ahead.
I had a customer come in today with a really beautiful, big, branchy piece of driftwood. It's about 7 feet tall, with lots of curvature on it. Very well aged. It was really quite nice. And I looked at that and I said, "Wow, that's really nice. You want store credit or cash?" And they said, "Oh, we found it outside here. It's yours." Uh, so I said, "Well, gee, that's a really nice piece." So I quoted him. I quoted him $40 on it,
Oh my goodness.
and they said that's too much. So then I said, "Well, I can sell it for 50, but I did offer it to you for 40. If you want to go into Sarasota and talk to my competitor, he'll sell you a comparable piece for 100." So they paid 40 for it.
Yeah,
And
oh,
we're
I would have.
beautiful piece of wood, big piece too. I mean, I think they were just if I had said 75, they'd have wanted to pay 60.
They'd have been
I've been
happy
doing
with it.
that. Yeah, there are a lot of people who haggle. Everybody haggles or tries to haggle. And I've reached a point with it where I just, what I'll say is, look, I've given you the lowest price I can give you on it. I'll be happy to charge more, but I can't charge less.
Right. And
And,
that's
and that's really true. I mean, I could give stuff away. I wouldn't be here long.
absolutely. Now, do you find that happens a lot? I've had this conversation with others regarding people that come into local fish stores and they want to try and talk you down on prices or ask for that deal or that bargain.
Oh, all the time. All the time. Yeah, I used to resent it. I don't so much resent it anymore. I just tell them that's the price. I had a guy in recently, can't remember much about it, but it was sort of like that. He came in with a real chip on his shoulder. They gave him the price of something, and he said, "That's too much." And I said, "Well, that's my price." For a bag of feeders, I said, "How much you want?" $10 for it. So these were big feeders. These were like inch-and-a-half feeders. So I put about 50 of them in the bag, 20 cents a pop. He said, "How many is that?" I said, "It's about 50, maybe a little more." He said, "It looks like 40 to me." I said, "Well, do you want them or not?" And he said, "No." So I took them back, dumped them back in the tank, and he left the store. And I hope he never comes back, because I really don't want to deal with people who are just into it to rip somebody off. I just
Absolutely.
don't want to deal with it.
And
I had
I think
another guy once. Every time he came in, he had something negative to say. And he was always grumpy about it. It was always, that fish is sick. Something wrong with that fish. Your tanks are really dirty. Just all the time. And he was, I think in his mind, he was trying to be critical in a positive way, but it didn't come across that way. Finally, after his third trip in of doing this, I said, look, I don't want you to come into my store anymore because you've only got negative things to say, and I don't want to hear it. Just, and he was shocked. He was utterly shocked. And I said, really, I'm serious. Don't come back because I don't want to hear it.
And
And
I
he
don't
left.
blame you a bit.
He never came back.
There was
Now,
somebody that,
I've had the other kind of situation where I've had young guys, like teenagers, like guys 16, 18, 20 years old, come in and try to be a smartass, this and that. And I say, there's the door, out. You learn some manners, you can come back. Every single one of them have come back, have apologized. In fact, one of them came back with his father, and his father said, my son has something to say to you. And he said, I'm sorry I fell off my mouth, that I was not, that I acted the way I did.
yeah, well,
And he went on to play professional football. This was a kid whose father got hold of him at a point where he needed to be gotten hold of and molded him into a real man.
and I think people need to get more in the mindset of if you find a good local fish store, particularly, mom and pop stores, and they're doing what they should be doing. They've got good people, they've got good fish, you know, be willing to pay what they're asking for it. Even if it's slightly higher than what you'd find at a Petco. If it's a quality store, be willing to pay that price and quit trying to get that bottom dollar out of it.
Yeah,
I've got,
exactly.
I've got a good relationship with my local fish store, and they've helped me out and they take care of me, but I don't ever go in asking for a deal. Um, so, but Greg B had a question for you. Said, you've said bigger fish like Oscars should be fed once a month or so. How do I get over the guilty feeling that I'm starving them?
Well, listen, the problem is your fish have trained you. They've got the upper hand. You've become you have a new master, and you've got to decide you're gonna you're gonna break free, and you're gonna insist upon your freedom. Just sit there in front of them and sing to them, freedom, freedom.
That's almost the same
Fisher,
approach for the reverse issue. People say, well, I can't get my fish to start eating whatever product. And you say, well,
yeah, exactly,
they'll
right,
eat it when they get hungry.
right. That's because they're feeding them everything else,
Yep.
right? Fish are picky. I mean, they will eat what they like, and they do know what they like. Let's see. Andre wants to buy some Lou Rams. Ro, can you post my email? Send me an email, Andre, with your order. I do have Rams in stock right now. In fact, I shipped a pair today. I shipped them on a little bit of ice. I don't know how this is going to work out, so I'm anxious to see. It's so bloody hot out there, but Rams can tolerate a lot of heat, so chances are they're going to be okay. But I didn't want to cook them, so I put an ice pack in, which may make them too cold. I mean, Lord knows. Let's see. Chewy says, you heard the story from Father Fish about the plecos. Ian Atkins It was not the responsible hobbyist. It is someone that could stock the river system as money no object. Well, no question about it. That was also long before there was any real concern about releasing fish uh, into foreign rivers, about mixing populations. The state was doing it. The state was bringing fish in, all kinds of fish, and releasing them into the waters. So when you go back to the 50s, that was a different age and time. There was a whole different attitude about what should be allowed to live in the river and what shouldn't.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and they are beautiful. I've looked after a few. I live in Canada, Chewy is saying. Yeah, Canada allows them. We can't bring them over the border. That really has to change. Really does. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Ro. The Gmail account. That's fine. I will check that one too.
I can understand, things that get put in place to preserve populations, export laws and things, but when it comes to being able to acquire fish, I think they really need to free some of this stuff up. There's a lot of fear law that goes into effect.
Well, there really is. Um, the other issue is that 50 years ago, 60 years ago, there were very, very few fish being bred by hobbyists. Live bears, of course. Uh, it took a long time for angels to come on. That wasn't until the 60s that angels really became commonly available. Um, the tetras, nobody bred tetras. Zebras, probably. Zebras were bred early on. Bettas were, but most fish were not. That was even before African cichlids were brought into the country. There were no Malawi cichlids back in the 50s. It wasn't until the mid 60s to late 60s that African cichlids from Lake Malawi began to be brought in, and nothing came in from Tanganyika. Not until the 70s did we see Tanganyikas. And when they came in, they were wild caught, and you could not keep them together. You had to separate them. I had a friend who was a breeder of early mbunas, and he would keep them in a 10-gallon tank with a divider. When they looked like they wanted to breed, he'd lift up the glass, they'd get together for like 2 or 3 minutes, and he'd put the glass back down and separate them. So it happened very quickly. But when he kept them together, they killed each other, or the
Oh,
male
no.
killed the female. So it wasn't until they started being bred in captivity that you could even keep them together. Prior to that, you couldn't.
Yeah. The breeding has come a long way in the past couple of decades.
Oh, it's amazing. It really is amazing. We've made such tremendous strides in being able to breed fish, and it's all the efforts of hobbyists. It really is.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I try and get more people into the hobby or bring back people that we've lost because of bad experiences, because the more people we can get involved, and of course getting the next generation involved plays a key role in not just our hobby but also the potential lines of fish that we could lose if the hobby dwindles down.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Dwarf
check.
snakehead. Chewy's chiming in on dwarf snakeheads being banned is an issue. They come from India. There's no way they should be banned from all states. Absolutely true. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's a different fish from a different region of the world. They're not a threat to anything. and they're a stunning hobby fish. I think what's really going to turn a lot of this around will be the hobby breaking into segments of society that it's not in now. I've had the notion for some time to try to find a way to get President Trump's son interested in tropical fish. Do you know that I can't remember which president it was. I think it was Herbert Hoover had a very large collection of aquariums in the White House while he was president. I think it was Hoover. I don't remember. But there were like 100 tanks. They were right off the office, right off the Oval Office, in the big oval room off the Oval Office. Hundreds of tanks back in the 30s. In the 30s, mind you.
That was a whole different ball game.
Well, it was, and we need to somehow get back to that. We need to get to the place where that's one of the reasons that I push the dirted sand bed so hard, because it genuinely works and is successful for a brand new hobbyist. They can set that tank up and leave it alone, and it's going to be a success. It's not going to be full of disease. It's not going to kill fish. It's going to be a healthy, happy tank for years.
Absolutely, and it really is.
It really is, and that's what we need to do. We need to make a pot. We need to put the big box stores on notice that we're fed up with them selling stuff that kill fish. Fed up. Enough with that. Enough with them not telling people how to keep fish alive. Done with it. Because that's what kills the hobby. Somebody will go in there, they want a fish tank, they buy the tank, they get everything, take it home, set it up. 2 days later, the fish are dead. They go back to get more, bring them home. A week later, the fish are dead. By the time they go through that 3 times, they're done, and the tank's sitting out on the curb. And it happens more often than not. I'll bet you it happens 90% of the time that people buy a fish tank. I'll bet you 90% fail because they're not given the basic information they need to be able to keep the fish alive. That's the fault. That's the fault of the big box store. It's right on them. Because they're deliberately causing people to kill fish in order to bring them back into the store to buy something else. And it stinks. It really stinks.
I think the average hobby time for a new aquarist or for aquarists in general is like 6 months. And that, if you factor in people like yourself that have been doing it for decades, people that have been for years and years, for that average to be that low for somebody to be in the aquarium hobby, that really shows you that it's got to be a high percentage, like you mentioned, of people that get in, they have a horrible experience, and they get out.
Yeah, you bet. 30 days. I get people in here all the time. Oh, wait, I tried that once, and it didn't work. And somebody told them about coming here, and the first time I get them to set up a tank, they come back a week later, 2 weeks later, thrilled and excited. Their fish are alive, they're healthy, they're happy. Let's see, Adrian, do you have any breeding setup that's all natural and does not run on filter? Adrian, watch some of my videos. They are all about that. Watch the videos on setting up a new dirted tank, setting up a balanced tank, setting up a forever tank. You will find at least 100 videos on my site about how to do exactly what you want to be able to do. And it'll work for you. And keep in touch. Keep contacting us and keep talking about it. Because if you're having trouble, we want to solve the problem.
You probably need to add more sand.
Add more sand. That's right. Another inch of sand. Here we go. Pushback Roy. Next time Trump comes to India, I'll gift him snake heads. Chanadanios and pea puffers. Out of sight. That's wonderful. Ian Atkins. My girlfriend got Florida caught Flatties, but they're fried from the wilds. From the auction last weekend. Do you know what kind of Flatties are found in Florida? The ones we have black spots. Well, yes, I do know what kind they are. And they are not native. There is no native Flatty in Florida. They are escapees from fish farms. The fish farms anymore have to have controlled ditches that do not run into open ditches. Used to be they could wash out a pond and flush everything out into the creeks and rivers. Can't do that anymore because that's what happened. All kinds of fish escape. We find populations of fish all the time here in Florida that have been escaped and in the wild for years and years. We found half-beaks recently, which was a real surprise. All kinds of things. But the Flatties are not native. They are an escaped fish. They probably have crossbred. They probably are not breeding true, although they may be. You know, in a given locale, if they've been in there long enough, they may very well be breeding true. But just FYI, they're not a native Florida fish. Yeah, right. Scott, the Roosevelt room in the White House had fish tanks. Does your research show who the president was who had them, Scott? I researched this a while back and I've forgotten. Hi, Lee. You're back home. Sorry you're late. That's all right. We're running over, but we're having a good time. Who are we stepping on? Who's on 4 to 5? Row. We're stepping on Row.
Oh, goodness. Sorry,
Is Row
Ro.
still, Row, are you still here? Let's see. Coffee, sandbed filter and gravel filter, same thing. Absolutely not. They are the opposite thing. Sandbed filter and gravel filter are the very opposite of each other. I've always been told they keep a lot of crap caught up, and if plants get blocked by roots. Well, that's really true. What the roots are able to do in a gravel filter is create a pocket that they make anaerobic, and that's where they're able to break down waste and feed. So even in a gravel filter, you'll get pockets that are blocked by the root system to trap dirt and to break it down. The roots of plants create an anaerobic environment around them in order to break down the nutrients that are adjacent to them so that they can feed on them. Little known fact. Let's see, coffee. Now, a sandbed filter filters naturally. The water flows through it based on the activity of the animalcules living in the sand. The bacteria and the microscopic life have cilia and little flagellates that move the water through the sand column. So it moves very, 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 very slow, such that it may take a long time for that dirt to get down through it into the bottom. But it does. It does. Which is why you need sometimes to add sand in order to build up that clean sand bed. So you're not getting mold sitting on the top waiting to go in. Chewy, what bothers me about tears, they do not recognize any other endangered species of fish in North America except killifish. Interesting. Lee Wilcox. So tell us about your tank, Lee. What's happening? How's it going?
Chattanooga Ed has joined us. Ed and I are working on at some point getting down there to pay you a visit, Father Fish.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun? That would be great fun. Chewy's talking about killies that are endangered in Canada, but thriving in Massachusetts. Scott and Lee, nice info, Scott. Where's Scott? Oh, Franklin Roosevelt. Oh, God, was it really? And John Kennedy kept them? No, I did not know that.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. So it was Franklin Roosevelt who had this. You know, that makes a lot more sense because by the 40s, the hobby had become pretty popular, and lots of people were keeping fish tanks. So it's not that long ago. We can do this. We can do this, guys. We need to get campaign tropical fish in the White House.
I like it.
First candidate who supports it gets their vote. Maybe. All right, where are we? We're at 4:30. We've been here an hour, better than an hour, about an hour and a half. But we did get a bad start. We stumbled at the beginning. Lee, day 3 of medication. I can see an improvement already. So I'm very hopeful. Thank you for your advice as always. Poor Lee. Lee's an example. I almost don't want to say this, but I'm not, because he knows what I mean. Lee loves his fish too much. And he really does. Lee loves his fish. He dearly loves his fish. And if there's a sick fish, he will all but pray over it. But he doesn't want to take it out of the tank. And that was the problem. He had a couple of tetras early on that were showing signs of fungus. And he didn't take them out. He left them in there because they looked a little bit better. And maybe a little bit better. And maybe not worse until boom. Half a dozen other fish got it. And now he's got to treat the tank. So hopefully this treatment is going to work and he's going to cure it. But here's the rule, guys. If you have a sick fish in your tank, take the fish out of your tank. Put it in another tank. Flush it down the toilet. You know, put it in another tank. You don't have to flush it, but you need to get it out of the tank. With diseases such as neon disease, that's frankly the only way to treat it is to get the sick fish out and try to get ahead of it. Try to get them out quicker than they can get infected.
Absolutely.
You can get that last one out of there before it becomes infectious, then you will have won the battle. But it's a rough one. Greg B. has donated 13 bucks, 13.99. Thank you, Greg. He's got a pleco as his logo. That's cool. What
I
is
love it,
that? Looks
Greg.
like, yeah, that's what kind of pleco is that? An albino bushy, maybe?
That's what it looks like, an albino long-finned bushy, if I had to guess. Female,
Yeah,
I think.
female. Yeah, I think so too. Thank you so much, Greg. Appreciate it. Lee, learn from my mistakes, everyone. You do not want to be going through what I am right now. I know it. I know it. I know it. We're
Yeah,
right there with you, Lee. Right
think
there
about
with you.
that principle almost as a reverse quarantine. A lot of people, we bring our fish in, we quarantine them to make sure that we don't bring anything in. And you're just doing that in reverse. You're seeing an issue and you're trying to get it away from your other fish before it gets to them. And sometimes you
Yeah.
can, sometimes you can't, but usually you
Sometimes,
can.
right. If it's ick, here's the exception. If it's ick, then taking the sick fish out is not going to stop it. But there's
Right.
one thing that will. Raising the temperature to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That will kill the ick every time without doubt, without question. It works absolutely. And that's all you have to do. And there's not a plant or a fish that cannot tolerate 86 degrees. A little higher is better. A little higher won't hurt. 87, 88, that's still good. 90 is okay. Don't go above 90.
Right.
Stay there. 2 days, it'll be gone.
And that's the thing people need to understand, keeping it there until it gets to the life cycle to where it's been killed off. Like you said,
Yeah,
do it for a
exactly
couple
right.
days. Don't do it overnight and then change it back.
Right. Yeah, you do need to understand the life cycle. It's exactly right. Those little buggers bore into the fish. The white spot you see, I've got a video about this. Explains everything about it. Watch the video. The white spot is poop. It is ick poop. Didn't know that, did you? When they're finished sucking like a vampire on the fish, they wiggle their way back out and drop into the sand where they lay 64, count them, 64 eggs, which hatch in one day and come up to get to be free swimming and attach themselves to another fish. So it doesn't take long to get overwhelmed. Who is
Yeah.
this called?
That's one of
Okay,
those that definitely multiplies exponentially.
you bet. We got a whole call here, but my phone's not working. Huh, wouldn't answer. Don't know. All right, Fisher and Fever. So good to have you here. This has
I
been great.
I appreciate you having me. I was going to say that could be some other things for videos, things like, explaining the life cycle of ick. And I know it
I
seems
got,
silly, especially for somebody that's been in the hobby as long as you, but the nitrogen cycle, things like that, the basics that so
yeah,
often
yeah.
we lose people because of.
Lee's gonna buy a 20 and quarantine, especially with new fish.
Yes.
You got to do it. Now, a lot of people ask me why I don't quarantine fish that come into the shop. And there's really one good reason for it. And that is that I buy from wholesalers who quarantine their fish when they get them in. So they've already been quarantined. If there is anything in the bag that looks at all sketchy, then I won't put them in the tank. I'll set them up in a system separate from the rest. Now, keep in mind also, all of my tanks that are on the system are set up so if I turn the water off going into that individual tank, it stops the flow of water in and out. So that tank is instantly isolated from the rest of the tanks. So I can quarantine any tank I want to individually at any time I want to, simply by shutting off a valve.
And honestly, I would recommend anybody that's setting up a system like that to spend the extra couple bucks and add those valves like you're talking about. That way you have the ability to do that if you're setting up a multi-tank system.
Yeah, it's I've got a couple of videos on this system. It's a little complicated to figure out. Once you get it figured out, it's really quite simple, and it's easily duplicatable and easily extended. You can start it in one tank and run a whole battery of tanks on the same system just by adding pipes as you go along. So it's a pretty effective system. It took us a lot of years to develop it, but it's simple, it's effective. The only issue with it is that you have to have a fish room with a concrete floor because you're going to get water on the floor. You can't do it in your living room. It's not for that. Lee Wilcox, oh dear God. I shaved my head today, but the beard is still with me. Someone help me decide. Beard on or off. Lee, don't you dare cut off that beard. Don't you dare cut off that beard. You've got a story about that fish room.
I'm with Father Fish. Don't you dare cut off that beard. Let me see if I can.
I heard somebody
Don't you dare cut off that beard.
I heard somebody talking about your beard.
Oh, mine's not going anywhere. It might change colors potentially, but it's not going anywhere.
I heard Mrs. Fishroom say she would divorce you if you did.
Yeah, which is funny because for years she was like, "No, don't grow a beard," and then I finally did, and she's like, "No, you can't shave your beard."
I remember when my 3-year-old saw me without a beard. She didn't know who I was, and it really freaked her out. And she looked, couldn't figure it out.
That's great.
Sue was shouting, Sue, Lee's wife, we're going to have an intervention with Lee's wife. She's saying, off with his head, off with his. Now, Sue, one's manhood, after all, is not dispensable. There, I've said it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I've had some people joke about super chats to shave the beard, and I said, nope, sorry, can't pay for that one.
Funny. Now, I like my beard more and more. I've had it now for about 5 years, I guess. And my hair is growing too. I'm not cutting my hair. I went to a barber not long ago, and the first thing he did to my beard was, see this? He cut it off. I can't. Cut it off right there. Never went back to him again. He didn't have a clue about beards and mustaches.
Oh, no.
Isn't that awful? Trimmed it right off. Chubb says that makes 3 of us, Lee.
I've actually moved up in the world. I got one of those fancy heated iron beard combs to make it all nice and pretty.
Oh, wow. Where's my brush? Yeah, Lee was saying, a while back, Lee was saying he learned how to brush his beard.
It's different.
Funny.
Oh,
funny stuff. I guess we got to go, don't we?
Probably.
Patrick is plugged in. Petsonics. We're getting everybody from the 5 o'clock hour coming in now.
Yeah, we are.
Hello, Petsotics. How's it going? Well, that's what we're doing. We're about to sign off here. We've been here for hours, it seems like. I like your chair.
Oh, thank you. That was a birthday gift from Mrs. Fever and some viewers slash supporters.
Where'd it come from? Do you know?
It was ordered off of Amazon. I'm sure I can get some details.
Wow, I like it. I need to get a new one. The wheels on this one are gone, and it's not high enough. I want something that catches the back of my head.
That's the issue I have with the chair I'm sitting in now, my old streaming chair. It's just worn out and way too low.
Love you, fish room.
One of these days,
Indoor,
I'll show you the other one.
oh, good. Indoor fish room inside. I have about 2-to-1 ratio of beard trimming to new work boots. Darn. That's in. I don't wear work boots. I got these tennis slip-on tennis shoes. Found them on Facebook. You don't have to lace them up. You lace them once and then just slip your foot into it, and the back pops right up, slick as a whistle, and it holds tight. It's snug, and for us old men, that's ideal.
Absolutely.
Aquaballs, hi Aquaballs. All right, guys, we're gonna thank you all for plugging in and being here. I think Rose overdoing her own stream, apparently. We need to end this madness. Thank you so much for coming over, Fisher and Beaver. I love you, appreciate you.
Thank you, Father Fish, and glad to be here.
Take care, guys. Bye for now.
Bye bye.